Now, Volodymyr Zelensky is born in 1978, and he is an actor, and he's a very successful actor. He is he specializes in comedy. He's a good-looking fella, hardworking fella. See, just because you decide to change careers and do something different with your life, that's perfectly fine and perfectly respectable. The problem is how this happened. You see, Zelensky was an actor, a successful actor, before he was hired in 2015 for a show called Servant of the People. In this show, he played a school teacher who gives a rant on video over the corruption in Ukraine, and this video goes viral, and by circumstances, the comedy circumstances of any television series, he becomes president of Ukraine. And that seems perfectly innocent, right? Well, you start digging in a little bit deeper, and you start to realize that this is all kinds of astroturf. An astroturfed movement is a movement that has been made with money. Now, the person who made Zelensky, the person who is his puppeteer, who pulls the strings on his life, on his existence, his political career, who has appointed all of the members of his cabinet, or has not appointed them, but he has been the one to decide who are the members of Zelensky's cabinet, is a man that you have probably never heard of. His name is Igor Kolomoisky. He is the man who has bankrolled the so-called Azov Battalion. The Azov Battalion, right now, as we are speaking, is fighting a fight to the death with the Russian army in the port of Mariupol. I think, I can't pronounce these names. I am so sorry. But they are fighting a battle to the death there, and you can look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. He ran for president in 2014. He set up his own party, ran for president, and failed. He got something like 2.5% of the vote, of the national vote of Ukraine. And so what did he do after 2014? Very simple. He set up his own scheme to puppeteer somebody into the presidency. And it was a very clever scheme. And you're going to see as I describe it that it was a scheme. You see, Kolomoisky owns 1+1 Media, which is a very large media conglomerate in Ukraine. It has television channels and all the rest of it. And so he, or his people, created a show, Servant of the People, as I mentioned before. Kolomoisky, or his company, produced it. They produced it, and of course, Kolomoisky, who owns a number of different enterprises, he astroturfed the show. He made sure that it got all the right media attention, that there was lots of advertisement for it and all the rest of it. And he personally chose Zelensky to be the main character, the presidential character, the school teacher who becomes president. And in the plot of this television show, the president in the television show, he wants Ukraine to join the European Union and NATO. Now, this is really odd. Why, this TV show and why that obsession? And what happened next was that over the next 3 to 4 years, the show continued, 3 years. The show continued. It became more and more popular because Kolomoisky put more and more money into the advertisement of the show, trying to astroturf it into popularity, and bring Zelensky as the candidate for president, for actual president. And in 2018, Kolomoisky created the party called Servant of the People, the same name as a TV show. And this party, Servant of the People, its objectives were for Ukraine to join NATO and Ukraine to join the European Union. Zelensky, as actual presidential candidate, all of a sudden started taking off. And you see, the media campaign tried to blur the difference between Zelensky, the character on the TV show, and Zelensky, the presidential candidate. Now, Zelensky was the president, but the real power was Kolomoisky from his chateau in Switzerland, because that's where he lives, in Switzerland. He does not live in Ukraine. He lives in Switzerland, and from Switzerland, he was the one who appointed Zelensky's cabinet. Or, again, I'm making the mistake. It's not that he appointed them, but the president officially appoints a member of the cabinet. But Kolomoisky was the man who selected the cabinet. And because Zelensky was a puppet of Kolomoisky, he put more money into the Azov battalion, more money into the neo-Nazi movements. And this is the bizarre thing. You see, Kolomoisky, Zelensky, and roughly 2/3 of Zelensky's cabinet are Jewish. And so it's just bizarre that Kolomoisky would fund a neo-Nazi group that one would assume would be anti-Semitic. But you see, muscle is muscle. And what Kolomoisky clearly wanted was muscle. He didn't care if they were neo-Nazis. And they are, by the way. And they're avowedly neo-Nazis. They don't go around pussyfooting about it. They're like, yeah, I'm a Nazi. That's what they say. And I'm sure somebody's going to clip that and use that as a meme against me, but I don't care. That's how they act. That's how these people are. Ukraine has been exceptionally corrupt for quite a long time because there was corruption in the 90s. But what happened was that a lot of Western powers, Western leaders, people like the Biden family, for instance, found out that Ukraine was essentially a piggy bank. They could go to Ukraine and for some empty promises, they could get a lot of money. I mean, Hunter Biden got a couple of $1 million a year or something or more as salary for a no-show job as a director at Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company. See? And lots of other European and British politicians, Canadians too, they got their slice out of Ukraine. It was their own private piggy bank. A corruption pushed forward by the oligarchs of Ukraine. Going back to this story here. Kolomoisky, for the past 8 years, has been funding the Azov battalion, the neo-Nazi movements, all kinds of militias, paramilitary groups that are all aligned with the Zelensky regime. Now, the Zelensky regime insisted on joining NATO, insisted on joining the European Union, and this created an existential crisis for the Russians. It's as simple as that. For the Russians, this is existential. They will fight to the last man to conquer Ukraine. Conquer, capture it, whatever you want to call it. They are going to capture the whole country, and they will die to the very last man to conquer it. Because for them, it's existential. Because they will never allow NATO and its weapon systems to be in Ukraine threatening Russia. And from their point of view, it is, do or die now. For America, it's no big deal. It's like Ukraine. It's fuck all, far away, right? But the Americans don't seem to understand this, or their arrogance or hubris, or the other possibility is that they are being manipulated by certain interests that do not have the well-being of the American people in mind. They don't have the best interest of the Ukrainian people in mind even. No. People like Kolomoisky, or people like Victoria Nuland, people like Wendy Sherman, people like Anthony Blinken. Anthony Blinken is the Secretary of State in the United States. That is basically, for those of you who are not American, he is the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Wendy Sherman is one of the principal negotiators. She's an Undersecretary of State, I believe. I forget her exact title, but she's the point person insofar as dealing with the negotiations with the different countries around the world. And Victoria Nuland is a very influential figure who engineered the coup d'etat in 2014 that overthrew the Yanukovych government and installed the Petroshenko government. And she is somebody who is the point person for Eastern Europe. Now, all of these people are with Kolomoisky in the sense that they all agree in the ultimate goal. My thing, I was saying that the Russians no longer care about Western Europe. They don't. They have no interest in Poland or what have you. They don't care. They are looking to Asia because they see that Asia is the future. And they have recognized, especially over the last few years, especially since 2014, with the implementation of all these sanctions and this demonization of Russia, the Russians have realized that they have no future with Western Europe or the United States or Canada or Australia or New Zealand. Their future lies with Asia. They have discovered a very enthusiastic partner. They are pivoting in that direction. They're happy. They don't need the bullshit of the West. And they certainly don't need NATO right on their doorstep in Ukraine. And so that's why they invaded.